Hi, everyone. We're back with a pretty exciting guest for the GTHL Breakout Podcast. We're lucky to have Mark DeMontis on to discuss Canadian blind hockey today. As always, I'm Steph Karate, do communications for the GTHL. And I'm just going to toss it to you, Mark. I want to start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. So my name is Mark DeMontis, and I'm a member of Canada's national blind hockey team, the founder of Canadian Blind Hockey, and a former GTHL alumnus. As I spent time playing many leagues, both with the York Toros, I played with the Warren Park Eagles, a quick cup of coffee with the Toronto Young Nationals, and was very involved in the GTHL community. I was fortunate to receive both the Len Barrett Award and the GTHL Special Recognition Award from the league, and as always, the G's always had definitely a special place in my heart, and especially when I had lost my sight at age 17 as a result of a rare eye condition called LHON. A lot of what I learned through being a player in the GTHL really helped me through that transition of facing adversity, and that was something that I needed through the time when I was 17. So I'm 35 years old now. I've literally lived half my life as someone with a visual impairment, playing blind hockey, and I have to say it's been quite the ride.
So for those who don't know, what is Canadian Blind Hockey?
So Canadian Blind Hockey is a national registered charity that provides the opportunity for those who are blind or partially sighted from coast to coast to coast to learn and try the great game of blind hockey. And blind hockey is played very similarly to traditional hockey, aside from a few modifications, including a larger adaptive puck that's slower and makes noise, and provides the players on the ice who are blind or partially sighted to use their hearing to locate the puck as they orient, around the ice. And a lot of players, very similarly to myself, had eyesight at some point in their life, played hockey, and maybe were diagnosed with a condition or struck by a tragic accident at some point, but still want to keep playing the game. And so the organization raises funds, it creates opportunities, it supports existing blind hockey clubs across the country. It puts on national tournament in Toronto at Mattamy Athletic Centre every year at the New Toronto Metropolitan University, as well as regional tournaments in the East and the West, and a national summer camp, as there's one taking place at St. Mary's University in Halifax, July, August, 2022, for example. So there are, there's always something happening. I think the flagship would be the youth programs for boys and girls across the country who are blind and partially sighted, getting on the ice in their community with their school boards, and getting on the ice as well at their, local, development camps and learn to skate programs. Ultimately, if you're blind or partially sighted and you want to play Canada's game, Canadian Blind Hockey makes sure there's a chance for you to do that.
And, we're so lucky to have you on to discuss this awesome organization. But how did Canadian Blind Hockey come to be?
So after I had lost my sight when I was 17, I was playing with the Young Nats, and it was a few weeks before the start of the season. And at the time, I'm not sure if it still is, the St. Mike's Buzzers were the affiliate to the Young Nats. And so I just got the call up I'd found my way somehow to get a call up to Buzzers camp for rookie camp. And my goal, I remember, was like a week away, and I was getting all pumped up for it. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm not a goal scorer, so I got to be tougher. And I was already starting to think about what I was going up against. Junior camp can be quite exciting, right? And literally the next day at Young Nats camp, I was having trouble seeing the puck, some cross ice passes, and I was missing it. Even just general standard breakout procedures were going sideways, and I was struggling. Something seemed off. At the time, I just figured I needed glasses, and thought it would be quite basic, or contact lenses. And I remember this was a time where there was no smartphone, so I had the flip phone. It would have been 2004. So I remember calling up my mom and saying, "Hey, I think I need to get my eyes checked." And one appointment led to another, and I found myself an optometrist to get a referral to a doctor, and the optometrist looked at my eyes, and they saw some abnormality in my optic nerves, and look at me sounding like a doctor. And what they realized was there was an inflammation in the nerves, and typically it could be only a few things could be pressed on by a brain tumor, multiple sclerosis, maybe early onset, or it could be just a rare eye condition, which I learned after a number of tests and exams at sick kids in Toronto. I realized that I was being diagnosed with Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. And right away, I lost pretty much everything overnight. I lost my young Nats contract. I was playing midget at the time, or what was known as midget, and so I only had the 1-year contract. I was a bit of a late bloomer coming up from AA from the York Toros, and so that was really tough for me. I lost my driver's license instantly. I remember just not like being so unsure what to do. I started calling like every AAA club in the G, just trying to see if there was any spots opened, really in denial of the vision I was losing, and not realizing that within like a month or two, I'd lose like 95% of my sight. And that was, it was tragic in many ways. Any life altering condition can be. And what happened was when I was a kid growing up playing at Weston Minor Hockey League in Toronto, City's West End, big up Dodgers. I had learned about a blind hockey team in Toronto called the Toronto Ice Owls, and they've been around since 1972. And there was a fundraiser game one time at Weston Arena when I was a kid, and my dad took my brother Luca and I out to, and we watched it. And I remember when I was feeling pretty down after I lost my eyesight, my dad kind of leaned over to me. I remember in the living room, he saw me really struggling with all of it because, I felt perfectly fine. My eyesight was so low by then. I knew it would be tough for me to keep playing, but obviously my brain was telling me I physically could still do it, and I felt in my prime. And my dad just leaned over at me. He said, "Have you ever thought about calling up the Ice Owls?" And I was at first like, the Ice Owls, like, what is that? Like, and he was like, "Remember the team when you were a kid? That blind hockey team that came to town that you got to watch, and it was so fascinating." And I thought to myself, well, maybe this is all I got left. I'll give this team a call, see if they're around still, and who knows if they even still existed. And I remember calling, was then the manager Ed Parenteau up and said, "Hey, I'm not sure if there's tryouts." I didn't know what to say. I kind of just said, I'm newly blinded and I'm looking to play some hockey. And he invited me out to Agincourt Arena. And I remember the first time I walked in the Ice Owl dressing room, again, I would have been only 17, fall 2004. It changed my life forever. I realized that I could keep playing the game I love even despite losing my sight. And the pivotal moment, the turning point for me was when I realized that there were like no programs across the country, around the world, for others to play blind hockey. And I just remember like that day learning that from the players and seeing the potential for this parasport and saying to myself, did this happen to me for a reason? Because I was always taught in order to create impact and change, you need to sometimes, take on a leadership role. And that's what I did.
Well, the true everything happens for a reason, meaning, and really taking it by the horns there. What definitely highs and lows there, but finding the silver lining at the end of it, it's really just inspiring to hear. And when you were going through all that, was there, outside of your dad, were there people around you that were helping you through that transition?
Well, because of my eye condition, that's a good question. I appreciate that question too, because when I with my eye condition, it can be hard to tell that I'm legally blind. So my closest friends, I've had the same 5 best friends since like my first day of kindergarten. And when they found out about it, I don't think they fully realized how severe it was. I mean, they realized I couldn't drive anymore and that I wasn't able to read, and that I would maybe miss them if they're waving at me from a distance. But I think that they didn't know how to deal with it. I think no one really knew how to deal with it because it was kind of something new that, I mean, for the most part, no one had ever really met anyone who was even visually impaired in their own life, unless it was maybe like a grandfather, grandparent, or a senior, or whoever it may have been. But it was very unusual to me to, a competitive hockey player who all of a sudden just, lost 95% of their sight. I really had to turn to, myself to half find inspiration, but also half accept it may not be out there in a way. Like, I had to kind of say the reason that blind hockey hasn't evolved is because in some ways no one was stubborn enough to, if I put the blinders on and push it forward. Everyone has always been so concerned and in how difficult it is to accomplish a basic task if you're blind. So the idea of building a ginormous, association or movement could have felt very much unrealistic. But I think for me, just like I always just realized, like, think about what the G did to me growing up, and it gave me an opportunity to play, to compete, feel part of a team. Road trips are always the best, and away tournaments, like all these things that it did to me to make me the person that I am. I figured, well, that's not just the G, that's hockey being a catalyst. That's sport and the power of what sport can do. And if we can instill that in young people who have disabilities, I mean, wow, who knows what they can do in their future, both in their careers, workplace, or in the community, whatever it may be, to fulfill their passion, right? So I guess I really leveraged my life experiences, personal, professional, at a young age, to say, wow, I really think that, by working together with the community, we can do something. And slowly my friends rallied around me, and my family and my community of Weston. And all of a sudden, in June of 2009, a few friends and I set out on a 5-province, 5,000-kilometer rollerblade to raise funds and awareness for Courage Canada, which is now the Canadian Blind Hockey Association, so that we could start these programs. And it went from saying, how was I going to start raising money and awareness, and how can I do this in a unique way that's non-traditional, like other than doing just a typical gala or fundraiser. And I think what I realized was I didn't want to just raise money. I wanted to prove to Canadians that you can still skate even if you're blind. And I think that's what helped me strap on the inlines.
It's true. It's a symbolism in that fundraising for sure. And I do want to go back to the important note that I zeroed in on there. Is you made a mention that a lot of people hadn't really been around someone who was partially blind. So that immediately goes to the stigma when it comes to vision and blindness, that we have this idea of what a blind person might look like, or might their mannerisms might be. And for a lot of us who aren't really exposed to it, believe that it's easy to spot. So what would you say to people in sport or not, that what blind people can look like or be in society?
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to point them out. It's not like you can walk down the street and say, unless they have a cane or a guide dog, hey, there they are. The majority of people who are blind or low vision, for that matter, or live with partial sight, you actually can't tell. They say 1 in 10 Canadians, and that's a form of being legally blind. Now imagine all those who don't classify as being legally blind but just have an eye condition. For example, 1 in 3 live with stigmatism, or seniors who have macular degeneration. There's so many eye conditions out there that people have, that we often just, we put the idea of blindness into a box where it's very much universal. Everyone has some form of blindness or some form of eye condition. I get asked all the time, like so there's often I meet someone and they'll say, hey, they'll be really real, and they'll be like, I've never met someone with a visual impairment. And as much as it can be frustrating, because it gets annoying, right? It's like here I gotta explain 101 blindness, but but like I get it too, because I could have been that person if I didn't lose my sight. And so I try to meet halfway, where I'm like, and then when I do meet halfway, I actually find the person was actually genuine on the other end. And they were really just trying to learn. And I get asked all the time if there's anything walking around with Canadian blind hockey swag. It's like, how do blind people play hockey? And like, I could be at just a Timmy's grabbing a coffee, and someone was talking to me, like they'll see my hat, they'll be like, I've seen everything today. I've seen a traffic jam, I've seen, stuff on the news, I've seen all sorts of things, but how do the blind play hockey? Because that's absolute craziness. And I just find, as soon as it's about blind hockey, I feel like I'm more inclined to to just be all, to show my passion, start talking about all of it. And because it's not personal, it's about my passion. Versus if it's about me personal, I feel like I can sometimes be selective about how much I share. And it's not because I don't want to, or I'm in denial. I think I'm very comfortable with the reality of my condition. I think it's because I don't want it to become the norm that every time someone with a disability leaves their home, they have to justify how their disability relates to general society. I think that, everyone has a challenge. Everyone deals with challenges. And it's not like I go around asking people, what do you, tell me about your challenges,
Exactly.
Sitting at a bus stop asking someone, tell me about the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your life, right? It's just not, it's just not, it's what I've learned is not the best way to interact. And, but blind hockey's been a big eye opener, funny enough, to people that just say, wow, blind people if they can play hockey, they can do anything. Very Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely. Just get them on the ice and we're good to go. So in terms of being on the ice, what are some things that you have going on? So we know you recently had a tournament. It would have been a couple months ago now, or I'm losing track of the time, but in 2022 for sure. So one, how did the tournament go this year, and what's ahead for Canadian Blind Hockey?
Yeah, well, Canadian Blind Hockey will keep putting on its events. It's always excited to do. The national tournament is the staple marquee event every year at Mattamy Athletic Center, and it took place this past year, and it was on hiatus for a few years because of the pandemic. And so the players coming together again, the families, boys and girls, all the way up to older adults who are blind and partially sighted, just playing hockey for the love of the game. And it was a true success, as it's always been. And I think now it's always trying to find that balance between continuing to put on recreational programs, and also looking at competitive opportunities and how to expand blind hockey so that it can seize at a high performance level. So there's always something happening with the sport. And again, there's an opportunity for Canada to take on the United States at blind ice hockey in the fall 2022. Right now, the tentative location is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So there's that's marked on the calendar for the fall 2022. I think there'll be more coming out about that. And again, it's become a passion of mine. I don't think it's a normal day if I wake up and I'm not thinking about how to grow blind hockey around the world.
Well, it's the passion that's so important, and you know what? That's not uncommon in hockey in general. So you're definitely keeping things going that way with that passion that a whole country feels. So for you, what do you wish most people knew about your association or blind hockey in general?
Well, I think the biggest thing is for people who may be blind or partially sighted or have an eye condition, or just to realize that the sport even exists. I mean, we live in the greater Toronto area, just to zone in. I know probably people tuning in all across the country, even globally. But in the GTA, the largest metropolitan regions, the population's so strong that there's no reason why there aren't people who are blind or partially sighted that already exist. So, if someone's listening or tuned in and they know someone who may benefit from the program, I mean, you'd be amazed how much one phone call can change someone's life. And I know that firsthand, right? It's even if you're unsure, or if you know someone who might be blind, or someone who faced an eye condition that maybe you grew up playing hockey with, and you're not sure if they know it, that you can play blind hockey. I think the biggest thing is just the old fashioned way. Just give them a call and reach out to them, send them an email, let them know that, even if you're not sure, if it feels kind of odd, just reaching out to someone, at the end, I know it'll change their life, and I know it's the right thing to do. And even though it can be hard, right? Sometimes people who've lost their sight don't want anything to do with sport. They've kind of turned their back on their passions. And I know that because I did that too. But that phone call can be that difference maker, right? So the biggest thing is spread the word, spread the message about the existence. If you get the chance to go online, obviously CanadianBlindHockey.com, learn all about the organization, attend in person, a regional tournament or a national championship. You go on YouTube, check out the video. One of the things you'll be very amazed by is the level of play, its caliber. It's for men and women, boys and girls. It's very, it's very diverse. It's the true meaning of what sport and community should be, right? An opportunity for anyone, regardless of age or ability, to fully participate and enjoy all the benefits as traditional, able-bodied sport, right? So, I think and I just want to say, like, I'm just one player. I mean, I'm just one player with an eye condition. There are thousands of people, not just in Canada, but around the world, who are playing blind hockey, who have their own story. And our stories are all so unique. And while mine might be that I was someone who grew up in the G playing before I lost my sight, for another player, they could have grew up playing in, small town Nova Scotia, or in BC, in the interior. It could be anywhere. Could be small town, Utah or California and San Diego. It could be anywhere, and people have their stories. And right now, there's up to 6 countries playing around the world. And so if you know someone who could be blind, not just in Canada or the US, if there's another country, if they're not playing, maybe they should be. And if there's not a team, maybe we should start one.
Hey, it's always worth growing and bringing awareness to something that, so like you said, thousands upon thousands of people deal with, and the average person might not think of it, but it's definitely worth getting the word out there. And in terms of getting the word out there, you did recently add Natalie Spooner, who is also a GTHL alumnus, to the organization as an ambassador. So how did that partnership come to be?
Yeah. Oh, that isn't that something? And Natalie's always been just such a class act in terms of everything she's ever done or been a part of. And I had the pleasure of meeting Natalie just about 10 years ago. She was just climbing from the U18 ranks, and her and I found ourselves in Windsor, Nova Scotia for we were filming an accessible TV show on the Long Pond, which is claimed to be the birthplace of hockey. Which questionable, it's still debatable. I won't, there's many that have their thought on that, but we were there, and there was a snowstorm, and Natalie and Jen Wakefield at the time was with Spooner, and we were stuck in small town Nova Scotia, not a bad thing. And we were out there on the pond playing hockey, and they realized that I was someone who was blind or partially sighted, and they had their moment too, where I remember Wakefield and Spooner were just like, whoa, this is pretty cool. We didn't, they were just probably maybe just after U18, maybe 2021's time. And so for them, they were like, wow, this is, they did not experienced it. And I remember telling them, I said, look, we're having our first ever blind hockey tournament later that year. It was a 2013 National Blind Hockey Tournament. I said, would love for you to come out, be special guests. And like Spooner, they came. I remember they gave out medals, and they were part of the first ever inaugural national tournament in Toronto. And ever since then, I've always just, run into Spooner and been in touch, and she's always come out to events and showed her support. And the organization was really trying to find someone who would really, embodies the Canadian spirit, but as well could be a great role model, as especially we expand our girls and women's programs, which is become a strong pillar within the organization. And then we reached out to Natalie, and of course she accepted, and what a difference it's made. She was out at the national tournament in Toronto, and she's so cool and chill, Natalie, that people didn't realize it was her, because she just came in and she was there to help. And I think she's so genuine every time she helps, that people forget that she's a celeb, and that she's a national team athlete, because she's right in there, like everyone else. And I'm just so grateful for her ambassadorship, and just everything that she does, not just for us, but for all of her causes, communities across the country.
That's definitely a great story, and obviously her support is so significant. And then in terms of help, how can other people get involved if they're interested?
Well, one of the biggest things is financially. I mean, any way that if you're listening and let's say you have a company, or you do some sponsorship, I mean, funds ultimately go a long way, especially for parasport to take place. So if there's any groups looking to figure out what they're going to do with their 2022 2023 budgets, if there are companies looking to get the hockey Canadian Blind Hockey is such a strong, reputable organization, and it's done such tremendous work across Canada and around the world, and a great opportunity for a donor or a sponsor, or just if there's groups that just want to spread the message or more exposure, or want to do an interview or whatever it may be to get the message out about its existence, as we talked about. We're grateful for any way that someone can contribute, and there's products on our online store you can shop at canadianblindhockey.com, and if you don't know how you want to help, but you really want to do something, just reach out, and that type of energy and passion can go a long way. Again, we're just so grateful. The G's always has been a huge supporter of, I know my own story, but as well the role the G plays, with community and with partnerships has been so big for our national tournament. And I have to give a shout out to Peter Curtis, and without him, there'd be no referees every year. And he's gone above and beyond every year, him and Scott Oakman, to make sure that, we have refs at our national tournament. And that's such a big thing. And so that support is huge for us. And so we're just happy to make more relationships and make more partnerships, and keep getting people on the ice who just want to play the game.
Absolutely. And lastly, I know you briefly mentioned it earlier, but where can people go to find out more information?
Number one place is on our website, canadianblindhockey.com. You can learn everything about its history, its current state, where the sport's looking to go next, upcoming events, as well as the online shop where you can buy some swagger, like maybe this hat or a few other things that I'm wearing. And social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They do an incredible job, Canadian Blind Hockey, at ensuring there's accessible social media for their followers. And so I think that those are some of the main ways. You can follow me if you like on Twitter. I'm at Mark DeMontis, MarkDemontis. And again, Canadian Blind Hockey, it's at CDN Blind Hockey on Twitter.
That's awesome. Well, we could not be more appreciative of your time today, Mark. It's truly an inspiring story, and just an inspiring association in general, getting everyone on the ice, and everyone deserves that opportunity, right? So we could not be more grateful for your time and your story, and we truly wish you all the best as the new season comes, and we'll be following along like always.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it, and thanks for all you do and your commitment to the game.
Thanks. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in to listen to this episode with Mark DeMontis on Canadian Blind Hockey. We look forward to bringing you many more inspiring stories just like Mark's.